Hey everyone, it's Lance from Christianity Minute. Last time, we spent some time with Jesus' family and his biological mother and his brothers. They came to see him as he was traveling near Nazareth. This week, we'll be looking at the power of Jesus as he demonstrates exactly who he is and his absolute power over creation. Come along with me as we study together. Let's use the Bible for what it is, a tool to help us understand him better. Let's use it to its fullest, and let's not be afraid to mark in our text to help our understanding. Since this is a new section here, I'm going to go ahead and mark that. All right, to start, as we always do, let's cold read today's text in Luke chapter 8, verses 22 through 25. One day, he got in a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they set out. And as they sailed, he fell asleep. And a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And they went and they woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we're perishing." And he awoke, and he rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm. And he said to them, "Where is your faith?" And they were afraid, and they marveled, saying to one another, "Who is this, that he commands even the winds and water, and they obey him?" Okay, so the story starts with them traveling, and they decide to get into a boat and travel to the other side of a lake. Well, given the scope of the story, the body of water which would accompany it, and where they land afterwards, that'll be next time. This is no small body of water, but it's the Sea of Galilee. A large number of the apostles were experienced fishermen, and they would have been extremely experienced in working on the Sea of Galilee as well. So this wasn't a request of a group of novices who couldn't handle a little weather to go to the other side. Now, Jesus entrusted them to do the work, and while they were taking care of the transportation, Jesus decided to sleep. It's likely he was exhausted doing what he does, after all. And as they were sailing, a windstorm comes up. Now, remember, this storm has to be pretty fierce because this boat, which is big enough for the 13 or more, as we established a few verses ago about the women who traveled with him, it was starting to take on water. And the winds must have been pretty terrible because these experienced fishermen, familiar with this sea and its storms, were starting to panic. The waves were big enough to get water into the boat, and they were terrified. You know what? They were so frightened that they woke up Jesus, who seems to be either unaffected by all this or he's a really heavy sleeper, just saying. And they complained at him, "Master, Master, we're perishing." It's like, we're dying. We're about to die. That's what they're saying. They legitimately thought that this might be the end. That, this must have been really quite the windstorm. And to be honest, I'm not sure how Jesus was still sleeping through it other than, well, his flesh was just plumb exhausted, preparing to save all of humanity. Well, I wish I could have been there to hear Jesus' voice inflections, because in my mind, I think he's a little annoyed at the disciples. You know what? Maybe he was laughing. Maybe he was just tired and he wanted to go back to sleep, and he groaned and creaked as he got up. Really, there's no way to know. But we do know that Jesus rebuked the wind and the raging waves. And the parallel in Mark chapter 4, verse 39 tells us exactly what Jesus said. "Peace. Be still." To be honest, this is truly one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. I'm going to notate Jesus' words from Mark off to the side here, just to have kind of the whole story in Luke. As the other writers say that Jesus rebuked the wind and sea, it leaves a lot to the imagination. Was he griping at it? For those who don't understand Jesus, they may ask if he had to cast some sort of spell or incantation. Did he swear at it? Mark gives us the detail that it was only just those 3 words. Peace, be still. Another reason why Mark chapter 4, verse 39 is one of my favorite verses is another detail. This storm was incredible. These seasoned veterans thought it was their end, and the storm was so aggressive and threatening, but as soon as Jesus says these words, the wind stopped, to the point that there was, as Mark calls it, a great calm. I'm going to mark that too here about the Mark 4:39. All right, now I live in deep East Texas, so I know about sudden gully washers that sneak up on you. Can you tell I'm a Texan? The storm comes on incredibly fast, but you generally know it's on its way by the smell, or the dark cloud, or the band of blue on the horizon stretching from sky to ground. The wind kicks up for a little bit before, and the daylight wanes. The storm goes away as fast as it came, but there's still kind of activity. That time when the colors are popping just before the sun comes back. And there's still a few little raindrops and a breeze that follows. This was different. This incredible storm just suddenly said, "Yes, sir," and quit. There was no more wind. The waves settled immediately. These men suddenly found themselves completely dead in the water on a sea of glass. Now, being the fishermen that they were, it's likely they had never seen the sea so calm. If you're familiar with water, even on the calmest of days, there's going to be, kind of thermals and this very gentle breeze off the water. Very gentle waves that just kind of go there. It is very rare to be so calm. Gentle waves are completely normal on the water, even on the calmest of days. But this was so calm that now they're frightened. They're not worried about dying anymore, but they're frightened at the sudden change of it. And Jesus asks, "Where's your faith?" Truly, they should have been ashamed of themselves, panicking like that. But, you know what? Let's cut them a little slack. Their experience, remember, these are seasoned fishermen, said that they were dead men in the storm. Every instinct they had from years of experience in fishing on the sea told them this storm was deadly. The thing was that Jesus, he wasn't going to die that way. Nothing was going to happen to him. Even the devil himself knew back in Matthew chapter 4, in verse 5, when he quoted from the book of Psalms. He said, "He will command the angels concerning you, and on their hands they'll bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone." Let's not forget also, Jesus was not going to let anything happen to his disciples. That was part of his charge, and we see that in his prayer to God in John chapter 7 and verse 12. It says there, "While I was with them, I kept them in your name, which you have given to me. I have guarded them, and not one of them has been lost, except the son of destruction, that the scripture might be fulfilled." Jesus knew that they should have had a little more faith. But to what end? Faith in him? Faith in that they could have calmed the storm as he had? Faith that they could simply make it through on their own strength? I tell you what, leave a comment. What do you think about the faith that Jesus was expecting out of them at that moment? I'm going to notate that nothing could happen to them before the scriptures could have been fulfilled, and I'm going to include those verses as evidence. So the question is, who was Jesus? The answer, Jesus was God. How do we know? Let's face it, the weatherman is making an educated guess. He keeps his job by guessing right more than the guy on the other channel. But how many consider him an utmost authority on meteorology on the subject? Jesus, he can make his own weather with just simple commands. That's the power that Jesus had, the power of God. It's amazing. Thanks for watching and studying with me. Next time, we'll be spending a little more time together compared to this week's story. Jesus is going to arrive on the far shore, and he's going to heal a demon-possessed man. How he does it, unfortunately, seriously damages some pig farmers. Also, the man healed, well, he wants to go with Jesus, but he's denied this joy. To be honest, I almost feel sorry for him. We'll go into that next week. If you enjoyed this study, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Feel free to share this video if you want to help me spread this incredible story of Jesus. And if you'd like to help me make further videos, want to thank me for this one, you can leave a donation via the PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App links below. Well, maybe you'd like to dive further into Scripture. Check out some of my other videos on the screen, and come back next time as we continue here in Luke on Christianity Minute.